Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of our first time home buyer market update. This is for November 6th, 2020. So we are just post election. My name is Stephen Mead with Domicile Real Estate, where we are on a mission to help California's renters become homeowners. So this week is kind of something interesting. And, there's a reason why we've divided up our stats into entry level homes and entry level condos. And this week is an example of why we do that, because these markets often do not move in the same direction or move at the same pace. Also, this week's t-shirt, I thought I would show you. It says, "Danger, I am a hugger." And perhaps you might see that side of me a little bit more when we get through COVID and everything else. And kind of following along that, I think, towards the end, I'm going to give some comments just about sort of what I think we can expect for first-time home buyers in the next maybe 30 to 90 days from now. So you can have an idea if you're planning or if you're considering sort of what we kind of see on the horizon now that the election is kind of go through and how that affects things. So without further ado, I'm going to kind of jump into our statistics this week and kind of run through our slides. So we're starting off again, as we always do, with our housing affordability. So we're also going to talk about housing availability. And just as a reminder for us, Southern California is Los Angeles and Orange counties, which is where we run our stats. And then we further divide those stats into two things: entry-level single-family homes, and we use a 3-bedroom, 2-bath configuration for that. And then entry-level condos, and we use a 2-bedroom, 2-bath configuration. And then again, these are the entry-level end of the market. So we call that our first quartile of prices, or basically half of the median. So if we were halfway between the cheapest and the median price, that would be the quartile price. And so if you look here, you notice that these charts are moving in different directions. And I think that's especially interesting. It's especially interesting when you consider that these are over the same geographic area. So that means you could be looking in the same neighborhoods and see prices moving in opposite directions, or rather, I think market competitiveness moving in opposite directions, whether you're looking at an entry-level single-family home or an entry-level condo. So I see it got cut off here, so we didn't have the words, but I'll tell you the number is 650. So that kind of jumps up to really a kind of pretty much almost up at our high point here. We are matching that. The market is very competitive price-wise for these single-family homes. And then down here, we see that our condo market has actually moved lower. So one thing to remember is this is based on the homes that closed in the last 7 days, which means these are contracts or escrows that were negotiated about 30 days ago, 30 to 45 days ago. So just bear that in mind, that price data is always delayed. Now, if we take a look and we kind of get an idea here, let me scroll down to our next page. Our total monthly payment, if we're looking at this, I think this one's really interesting. And I love bringing in these 2018 numbers here. You can sort of really see what's going on. So if we're looking at our entry-level single-family home, we are almost exactly the same payment that we would be at 2.5 years ago on these entry-level properties for these single-family homes. But if we look towards our condos here, our 2-bedroom, 2-bath entry-level condos, our payment level is actually down a couple $100. It's almost down 10%, not quite, maybe 8, I think, or 9%. So another thing to remember is that these payment numbers are based on a 5% down payment and include taxes, mortgage insurance, homeowners insurance. So these are really a total housing cost figure, included HOA fees in the case of our condos. So when you look at these numbers, these really do represent sort of an actual total payment for a first-time home buyer scenario. And then one fun little thing that I like to do is just to give people a reference point is sort of the minimum household income that is required to buy the homes at these price points if there were no other debt. So if you didn't have any student loans or car payments or credit cards, what is the minimum amount of household income you would have to show in order to qualify for those payments? And here for our single family homes, it is $88,000, just about. And then we've actually dropped a little bit to $66,000. And part of what's driving these drops is not so much the prices, but that interest rates did give us a little bit of relief versus last week. I think what's cool though is if you look here, we're almost exactly the same again for as we were back in 2018. But if you look at our condo here, that is actually over $5,000 less in income that is required in order to afford basically the same condo as you were. So before we jump into our availability, I do want to talk about one little thing. Weeks that contain a holiday or a presidential election, for example, tend to be a little odd when we are looking at these availability statistics. And part of that is because, people's mentality around a holiday is that basically means you lost a week. So instead of getting 7 days worth of new escrows, for example, we really only get 6 days worth. So just bear in mind that sometimes these availability numbers are a little funky on a week that contains either a holiday or sort of a major event like a presidential election. So jumping back in there, we'll kind of go over our availability statistics. So this is our absorption rate. And again, this is probably one of my favorite charts. And the reason why is that this chart really talks about how do you reconcile supply and demand in the last week. And it does that by calculating how many new properties came into the market versus how many properties went into escrow. And if you look here, these results couldn't be any different, right? We took a 10% dive on our condos, which are notated in red. This means the market is less competitive on condos, and we took a 5% rise for our single family homes. And I will tell you, a 97% is a hyper competitive market. Now, again, bear in mind that this is an election week, and that means that things may be skewed a little bit, and we really want to see what goes on next week. But this is a trend line that we're seeing. The single family market is just plain red hot, and there's really no other way to put it. If we go to our week's supply of homes, this kind of tells a similar story, right? Our condos are notated here in red. We have about 9.5 weeks. That is still considered a moderately competitive market, but you have a lot more options, a lot more choices. You might even see sellers who were too aggressive, and you'll start seeing price reductions. We had a small rise in inventory for our single family homes. And again, one of the things also that our inventory calculation does, our week's supply of homes, is we look at new escrows over the past 2 weeks. So that actually smooths this graph out a little bit. I think the word on the ground is anytime you have less than 4 weeks of homes available, you're in a very hyper competitive market. There's just not much inventory, and there's not a huge amount of choice. What I want to do is kind of talk a little bit about what changes do I see coming as a result of the election. And to be honest, I don't really see a huge number of changes. I think people sort of want to believe that because there may be a change in the president, that would just immediately upend the market. And the reality is, I don't think that's true for a couple reasons. I think a lot of the things that we are talking about right now are very pandemic related. So, the Fed has come out saying that they don't really anticipate making any giant moves in the immediate future. So I think when you look at that information, that says we're not going to see any giant changes in interest rates. I do think that, this is a situation that will not exist forever. I think when vaccines start hitting the ground, I think that may change things. The unemployment numbers that came out this week, unemployment dropped to 6.9% nationally. That is actually not a bad number at all. And especially considering we're in the middle of a pandemic. So I do see some upward pressure on interest rates. I just don't see it in the immediate term. So I think if you are working to get pre-qualified or thinking about buying a house, you still have time. You haven't missed out. But understand that door just isn't going to remain open forever. Anyhow, thank you everybody for watching. Comments, questions, we love them. We love it even more when people reach out to us for an initial consultation. We'd love to help you in your quest to become a homeowner. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel and hit that notification bell. And as always, we do 2 sort of weekly videos. This one, which is geared towards first-time home buyers. And then we do a whole market video that comes out on Tuesdays as well. So definitely stay tuned for that. Anyhow, everybody have a great weekend, and we will see you next week.